goes out and gathers input from parents and brings parents' perspectives to the Board of Education to help inform decision policies on current district initiatives, and restorative practices was one of those initiatives. I'm going to let, so the restorative practice has really informed our work in the last few years, but I'm going to let Miranda share a little bit about the work that we did over the last 2 years, and then I'm going to share a little bit about our most current work that we've done this year.
So my name is Miranda Martin, and I've been a member of the Parent Advisory Council for the past 3 years. And the first year that I was on the Parent Advisory Council was really the year that we started to focus on restorative practices. And so the process for the Parent Advisory Council each year is that we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year looking at statistics, data about the district, including discipline data, academic data. And then we hear from the superintendent and board members about what some of the policies are that are the strategic focus of the school district that year. And so we had heard about restorative practices, we had looked at some data, and I think a lot of members of the PAC really started to make some connections that, we didn't know much about restorative practices, but it seemed like it might be something that tied together a lot of concerns that we had heard over the years in reaching out to families in the community about some things that were just common strands we heard year after year about the feeling that there needed to be better communication between families and schools and teachers and the district, the feeling that there was a problem with school climate and bullying, and also just the overall feeling that sometimes student discipline was unfair. And so we took it upon ourselves to really try to educate ourselves more about what restorative practices was, and to use that as our outreach for the year, to go to schools, which is something that the PAC does most years, is to have community conversations around a certain topic. And so in 2011, 2012, we decided to go out and talk about restorative practices. So many of us attended trainings, both through the district and through the IIRP, and learned about restorative practices, and then we developed a conversation guide so that we could go out to schools and really hear how parents were feeling and give them a little bit of information about why the district had adopted this policy on restorative practices, and then give them a chance to experience some of the practices through these conversations. And I don't want to take too much more time, but essentially what we found was that parents were very receptive overall. We ended up having about 20 conversations at schools throughout the district and community groups. And there were a lot of questions and concerns and worries about whether, it would be too light on people who were causing harm to their students, or whether the district was really fully behind it if it was just a flavor of the day. But overall, parents really liked what they heard and really wanted it to happen and to work at their schools. And importantly, they wanted to be part of it. They wanted trainings for parents, and they wanted to know how to bring these practices home and support their students in their home environments too. And so it's really, as a result of that, it's been something that we've really worked into a lot of the outreach that we do as Parent Advisory Council and into our practices as an organization. And I'm going to pass it back to Jordan to talk a little more about that.
So yes, restorative practices has really been incorporated into our process, into our meeting process. We always start our meetings with an opening circle. Any of the work that we do when we're doing outreach, we incorporate the opening circle, closing circles. And most recently, the work that we've done this year, we actually did 2 engagement campaigns, and one doing outreach and getting input from parents around the local control and accountability plan for our district. And before we had agreed to do that piece, we, at the beginning of the year, as Miranda mentioned, we were looking at data, achievement data, suspension data, and as Carrie mentioned, the disproportionality in our particular district. And PAC members felt really compelled that we needed to form a project around that particular area of the issue in our district, and what could we do to support that. So we actually went out into the community and looked at what has been the experience for families in our district around racial equity. And we took these questions. We're actually going to be presenting our findings tonight and recommendations to the Board of Education this evening, but took these questions and framed them in the context of looking at racial equity. Having people share their stories, what's happened, what do you think and feel about that? What's been the impact, both positive and negative? What's been the hardest part about that? And then what's working in the district around racial equity? What are the conditions and circumstances that challenge your school's ability to look at racial equity? And then what needs to happen to make things better? What are the solutions? That's the other thing, is that we don't always have time to circle back and provide the resolution piece, but we try to build in next steps in our conversations for communities to look at, so that when they are looking at issues, that they're able to come back and look at the solutions amongst themselves. And that's really what we've done, is really our process has been looking at collaborative problem solving. So in each conversation that we hold, we have that where we're actually getting the voices of the participants in the conversations. So everybody's voice is heard. So that's our
and I'm the district coordinator for the Excel after school sites. In our Section 25 school district, we have over 90 plus after school sites, so most of our schools have an after school program, hopefully with after school for all the schools we have it. So with that, I have been doing this training for the past 3 years. I started with just a basic RP 101 with the after school sites, to give them the information that this is coming out of the district, this is going to be the change in the district, as well as so they can recognize the language and what the approach is all about. The second year, basically, was I created cohorts. Because our after-school sites are basically run from CBOs, community-based operations, so I created those cohorts for the after-school sites to come on kind of like every other month on Thursdays to get more in-depth training. And we focused on 4 things: circles, effective statements, social discipline window, and restorative versus tradition, which is really impactful because they got a really clear understanding, okay, this is tangible, I can take this back to the after-school program. A lot of things that are going, and I can talk fast, so I hope you can hear me, but a lot of things that were already restorative in after-school program, but they didn't have a language for it, didn't have a label for it. They were already doing things, and now we put this under the umbrella of, yes, you're already doing community building, you're already doing a tribe, you're already doing caring for the community or champs. It's just under the umbrella of restorative practice. Again, let's continue and make this more intentional. So it's been very positive. I'm just amazed at how much we have grown through the past 3 years of training with using circles, RP questions. But what's wonderful about it is that we have 18, 19-year-olds that come in with a part-time job to work in after-school programs. They work 20 hours a week. They might have a group of 20 kids, and they have no idea how to get started and what to do. So restorative practice not only gave them the skills and the tools to help support their job with youth advocacy or with youth work. Also, I believe it made their job more professional, because we're totally trying to push away from that babysitting mentality to, no, there's some actual work that can be done in our school program, and these people have the opportunity to learn how to do it through these tools and skills, and they're able to take these skills on to wherever they go. What's been difficult, what's been challenging is that there are still people that think it's a Band-Aid, like, okay, I did it, it didn't work, so it doesn't work. Like, it's not a Band-Aid, it's a process. Also, aligning it with the school day. There are places or schools that after schools actually has more opportunity to do restorative practice because it's a different kind of relationship than in day school. So that alignment sometimes is not there. But also for them to push through when you get stuck. You know, you get to the point where you get from the circles, the informal, and as you go towards that continuum where you get to the more formal, oh, I don't know what to do. Suspension. You know, you go right back to that quick suspension. So pushing through and making sure you build that resiliency, that continuity, that consistency, and to continue to work with RP because it is a practice that works. We don't condone suspension in that school program unless, you know, it's major serious. And even with that, we want to go through the same process that the RP implements. But again, we work with 20-year-olds. We work with people that it's their first time working with students, so we have to, we're going to keep on working with that. The last thing, what I'm going to do next year is go deeper, talk about the implicit biases, the fundamental attributes, and also bring some meaning to what cultural diversity and awareness is about with working with the schools and our schools. Thank you.